Have you ever wondered why the impossible feels perfectly normal inside a dream? Why you can fly through walls, speak with long-dead relatives, or find yourself simultaneously in your childhood home and on an alien planet without questioning any of it? What if I told you that your dreaming mind might be operating according to the same strange rules that govern the quantum world, where particles exist in multiple states at once, in carefully defined physical models, until someone decides to look? Tonight, we're embarking on a gentle journey through one of the most fascinating intersections of science and consciousness, a place where the bizarre logic of quantum mechanics meets the mysterious realm of dreams, where reality becomes fluid and the impossible becomes mundane. I'm here to guide you through this exploration of how quantum superposition, the ability for things to exist in a multiple states simultaneously, can serve as a useful metaphor for why our dream world feels so fundamentally different from waking reality. Before we dive deeper, settle in wherever you are. Whether you're lying in bed, curled up on a couch, or taking a quiet walk, let yourself sink into this mystery with me. We'll move slowly, thoughtfully, allowing each idea to unfold naturally. There's no need to grasp everything immediately. Sometimes the most profound insights come when we simply let ourselves drift along with the current of curiosity. Every night, without fail, you slip into a state of consciousness where the fundamental laws of reality seem to dissolve. In dreams, you might find yourself having a conversation with your grandmother who passed away years ago, while simultaneously being late for an exam at a school you never attended, in a building that's somehow both your childhood home and a spaceship. And here's the truly remarkable part. None of this strikes you as odd while it's happening. This acceptance of the impossible isn't a flaw in your dreaming mind, it's a feature. Your brain, during REM sleep, operates under a completely different set of rules than it does during waking consciousness. The logical, analytical parts of your mind that usually say, "Wait, that doesn't make sense," become quiet, allowing experiences that would be instantly rejected in waking life to unfold with perfect naturalness. Scientists have long been fascinated by this transformation. During REM sleep, your brain shows patterns of electrical activity that are remarkably similar to waking consciousness. Yet the subjective experience is radically different. The same neural networks that construct your sense of reality during the day are active during dreams, but they're operating in what we might call a different mode entirely. This shift isn't just about reduced critical thinking or relaxed logic. Something more fundamental is happening. The very structure of how your consciousness processes information appears to change. Time becomes elastic. Causality becomes optional. Identity becomes fluid. You can be yourself and someone else simultaneously. You can be in multiple places at once. You can experience events that contradict each other without any sense of conflict. These aren't just curious anomalies to be explained away. They might be clues to something deeper about the nature of consciousness itself. Because when we look closely at the quantum world, the microscopic realm where the fundamental building blocks of reality operate, we find something startling. The same kinds of impossible possibilities that feel so natural in dreams appear in mathematical descriptions of quantum behavior. In the quantum world, particles routinely do things that should be impossible according to our everyday understanding of reality. An electron can be in two places at once according to quantum descriptions. A photon can travel through two different paths simultaneously, as represented in experimental outcomes. A quantum system can exist in what physicists call superposition, a state where all possible outcomes coexist until the moment someone tries to measure which one is actually happening. This isn't just theoretical speculation. Quantum superposition has been demonstrated countless times in laboratory experiments. Scientists have observed particles that are described as existing in multiple states at the same time. It's not that we don't know which state they're in, it's that their behaviour is best explained by treating all possible states as simultaneously relevant until measurement produces a definite result. The famous double-slit experiment illustrates this beautifully. When scientists fire individual particles of light or matter at a barrier with two slits, something extraordinary happens. If no one watches which slit the particle goes through, it behaves as if it goes through both slits at the same time, creating an interference pattern on the detector screen behind the barrier. But if scientists set up equipment to observe which slit the particle actually uses, the interference pattern disappears. The particle behaves as if it went through only one slit or the other, never both. The particle's behaviour changes based on whether it's being observed. This isn't about the physical disturbance of measurement. Even passive observation, where the act of detection doesn't physically interfere with the particle's path, still causes this change in behaviour. It's as if reality itself is somehow incomplete within the mathematical framework until observation occurs. This relationship between observation and reality in quantum mechanics has puzzled physicists for nearly a century. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining what becomes real. Others propose that multiple realities branch off at every quantum event, with consciousness simply following one particular path through an infinite garden of possibilities. What's particularly intriguing is how this quantum behaviour mirrors the strange logic of dreams. In dreams, you regularly experience superposition states in a psychological sense, where contradictory things coexist without conflict. You might dream of being both adult and child, both yourself and someone else, both at home and far away. These impossible combinations feel perfectly natural until you wake up and your critical, observing mind says, "Wait, that couldn't have happened." Take a moment to think about the last vivid dream you remember. Notice how it felt completely real while you were experiencing it, even if it involved scenarios that would be impossible in waking life. This isn't because your dreaming mind is less intelligent or less aware. It's because it's operating according to different principles entirely. During REM sleep, the brain shows a fascinating pattern of activity. The areas responsible for logical reasoning and reality testing become less active, while the regions associated with emotion, memory, and imagination become highly engaged. But more significantly, the normal patterns of neural communication change in ways that might create conditions analogous to quantum superposition. Your waking consciousness operates largely through what neuroscientists call top-down processing. Your brain takes sensory input, compares it to stored memories and expectations, and constructs a coherent narrative about what's happening. This process tends to collapse ambiguous situations into definite interpretations. You see a shape in the distance, and your brain quickly decides whether it's a person, a tree, or a shadow. In dreams, this process seems to work differently. Instead of collapsing ambiguities into single interpretations, your dreaming mind appears to embrace multiple possibilities simultaneously. That distant shape can be a person and a tree and a shadow all at once, and this multiplicity feels perfectly natural. Recent research into the neural oscillations that occur during REM sleep has revealed something fascinating. The brain produces distinctive patterns of electrical activity called theta waves, which synchronize across large regions of the brain in ways that don't occur during normal waking consciousness. These synchronized oscillations might create the neural equivalent of loosely superposed information states, allowing different parts of the brain to share information in ways that transcend normal logical constraints. Some researchers have proposed that these theta wave patterns during REM sleep might support quantum-like information processing in the brain. While this remains a speculative idea without scientific consensus, it offers an intriguing possibility that dreams represent a state where consciousness has access to superposition-like modes of processing information. This could explain why dreams so often feature impossible combinations of elements from different times and places in your life. Your dreaming mind might be accessing a broad overlapping landscape of memory and association, allowing combinations that would be logically impossible but emotionally or symbolically meaningful. As you continue listening, notice how your own consciousness operates right now. You're aware of my words, perhaps of sounds around you, of sensations in your body, of thoughts and feelings arising in response to these ideas. Your waking consciousness acts as a kind of observer, constantly selecting which aspects of your experience to focus on and weave into your ongoing narrative of reality. This observing function of consciousness bears a striking resemblance to the measurement problem in quantum mechanics at the level of analogy. Just as quantum systems exist in superposition until observed, your stream of consciousness involves a continuous process of selecting particular thoughts, perceptions, and memories from a vast field of possibilities and bringing them into your focused awareness. But in dreams, this observer function seems to operate differently. Instead of actively selecting and organizing experiences into logical sequences, the dream observer appears to float along with whatever emerges from the unconscious mind. You're still aware in dreams, but it's a different kind of awareness. You're present to the experience without the usual analytical framework that tries to make everything fit together coherently. This passive quality of dream consciousness might be crucial to understanding why impossible things feel possible in dreams. In waking life, your observing consciousness is constantly checking experiences against stored knowledge and expectations. When something doesn't fit, you either reject it as impossible or work to reinterpret it in a way that makes sense. In dreams, this reality-checking function is diminished. The observer within becomes more like a passenger on a journey rather than the driver trying to control the direction. This allows the dreaming mind to explore combinations of thoughts, memories, and sensations that would normally be filtered out by your logical, organizing consciousness. Some interpretations suggest that this shift in the observer function during dreams might allow access to deeper, less constrained modes of cognitive processing. While we don't yet have scientific consensus on how consciousness relates to quantum mechanics, the parallels are intriguing enough to warrant serious consideration. The idea is that consciousness might naturally operate in a highly distributed, possibility-rich state, with many potential thoughts, memories, and perceptions available at once. Your waking consciousness then acts like a selection process, narrowing this field into specific, sequential experiences that form your stream of conscious awareness. In dreams, this selection function might be relaxed, allowing you to experience overlapping possibilities more directly. This could explain why dreams feel like accessing a deeper, more fundamental layer of experience, even though they often make no logical sense from a waking perspective. Time in dreams behaves like a non-linear phenomenon. You might experience events that seem to unfold over hours or days, only to wake up and discover that only minutes have passed. Conversely, a brief dream sequence might feel like it contains the emotional weight and narrative complexity of years of experience. This elastic quality of dream time mirrors the way time behaves in quantum mechanics within certain theoretical descriptions. At the quantum level, the normal flow of cause and effect can become ambiguous. Events can appear to influence each other regardless of their temporal sequence as probabilities rather than fixed outcomes. In dreams, you regularly experience this temporal fluidity. You might dream of meeting someone you won't encounter for years in waking life, yet the meeting feels completely natural and meaningful within the dream. Or you might dream of resolution to a conflict that hasn't yet occurred, experiencing the emotional satisfaction of healing before the actual healing takes place in your waking life. This isn't just metaphorical similarity. If consciousness does operate according to principles that resemble quantum behavior, then dream states might represent periods when the usual temporal constraints of classical experience are relaxed. The implications of this are profound. It suggests that dreams aren't just random neural firing or simple memory consolidation, but potentially a form of consciousness that operates closer to the fundamental limits of how experience can be organized, where multiple possibilities coexist until attention selects a particular outcome. As we continue this exploration, we'll delve deeper into how the strange properties of quantum mechanics might illuminate the mystery of consciousness itself, and why your nightly journey into dreams might be more than just a curious side effect of sleep. It might be a window into the deep structure of subjective experience. For now, let yourself sit with these ideas. Notice how they feel in your mind. Do they resonate with your own experience of dreams? Do they suggest new ways of understanding the relationship between consciousness and reality? We're just beginning to explore this fascinating intersection, and there's so much more to discover together. As you drift deeper into this exploration, consider what happens in your brain when it prepares for the nightly journey into dream consciousness. During the transition into REM sleep, your neurochemical landscape undergoes a profound transformation that might hold clues to why dreams feel so unconstrained in their behavior. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine floods your brain during REM sleep, while the presence of norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine drops to nearly zero. This creates an environment unlike any other state of consciousness you experience. It's as if your brain switches from one operating system to another entirely, with different rules governing how information flows between neurons. This altered chemistry doesn't just change how you think, it changes what kinds of thinking become possible. The usual hierarchical processing that characterizes waking consciousness, where higher brain regions control and organize lower ones, gives way to something more distributed and fluid. Neural networks that normally operate independently begin communicating in novel patterns, creating opportunities for the kind of impossible combinations that characterize dream experience. Imagine your waking mind as a carefully organized library, where information is catalogued, cross-referenced, and retrieved according to logical systems. Now imagine that same library during a gentle earthquake, where books from different sections fall together, creating unexpected juxtapositions and new combinations of ideas. This metaphor captures something essential about how the dreaming brain operates, not through chaos, but through a different kind of order altogether. Research into these neurochemical changes has revealed something particularly intriguing about the role of acetylcholine in creating dream consciousness. This neurotransmitter appears to enhance the brain's ability to form novel associations while simultaneously reducing the critical evaluation of these associations. In other words, your dreaming brain becomes exceptionally good at creating new combinations while becoming less concerned with whether these combinations make logical sense. This neurochemical shift might create conditions that parallel what physicists observe in quantum systems. Just as particles in superposition can exist in multiple states simultaneously without classical logic applying, your dreaming mind might access modes of information processing where contradictory elements coexist without conflict. The usual neural mechanisms that would collapse these contradictions into single, coherent interpretations become less active, allowing you to experience what might be thought of as cognitive superposition. Take a moment to reflect on this as you listen. Can you remember dreams where you were somehow both yourself and someone else? Where familiar places contained impossible architecture? Where past and future seem to happen simultaneously? These aren't glitches in your dreaming mind. They might be glimpses into how consciousness operates when freed from the constraints of classical logic. For decades, scientists dismissed the possibility that quantum effects could play any meaningful role in biological systems. The warm, wet, noisy environment of living cells seemed incompatible with the delicate quantum states that physicists study in carefully controlled laboratory conditions. Quantum coherence, the property that allows particles to exist in superposition, was thought to be far too fragile to survive in the chaotic environment of biology. But this assumption has been dramatically overturned by discoveries in what's now called quantum biology. Plants use quantum coherence in photosynthesis to achieve nearly perfect efficiency in energy transfer. Birds navigate using quantum entanglement in specialized proteins in their eyes. Even the way enzymes catalyze biochemical reactions appears to involve quantum tunneling effects. These discoveries suggest that life didn't just happen to arise in a quantum universe. Life has learned to harness quantum effects for functional purposes. Evolution appears to have found ways to protect and exploit quantum phenomena, even in the warm, complex environment of living systems. This raises a profound question about consciousness and the brain. If other biological systems can maintain and utilize quantum effects, might the neural networks that generate consciousness also operate according to quantum principles? While this remains a speculative idea without scientific consensus, the possibility is intriguing enough to warrant serious consideration. The brain's microtubules, tiny protein structures that form the scaffolding within neurons, have attracted particular attention from researchers exploring quantum theories of consciousness. These structures have properties that might allow them to maintain quantum coherence in theory for longer periods than previously thought possible. They're organized in regular, crystalline patterns that could potentially isolate quantum processes from environmental interference. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness might emerge from hypothetical quantum computations occurring within these microtubular structures. During normal waking consciousness, environmental factors might limit such processes to brief, localized events. But during the altered neurochemical environment of REM sleep, conditions have been proposed as potentially favouring longer-lasting coherence. If this speculative model has any validity, it could help explain why dreams feel like accessing a different layer of experience altogether. Your dreaming consciousness might be operating closer to less constrained informational states. experiencing overlapping possibilities that are normally narrowed into definite thoughts and perceptions during waking consciousness. This is, of course, a highly speculative idea, not a proven scientific fact. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness remains one of the deepest unsolved mysteries in science. But the parallels between quantum behavior and dream experience are striking enough to suggest that this connection deserves continued exploration as a conceptual comparison rather than a literal mechanism. Every night, as you fall asleep, you experience one of the most mysterious transitions in human consciousness. You move from being an active observer of reality to becoming something more like a passive experiencer of whatever emerges from the depths of your mind. This shift might hold crucial clues about the relationship between consciousness and the quantum measurement problem at the level of analogy. In quantum mechanics, the act of observation appears to play a fundamental role in determining what becomes real. Particles exist in superposition until measured, at which point they collapse into definite states. But this raises a profound question. What constitutes an observation? Is it simply the physical interaction with measuring equipment, or does consciousness itself play a special role in collapsing quantum possibilities into classical realities according to certain interpretations? Different interpretations of quantum mechanics offer different answers to this question, but all agree that something special happens at the boundary between quantum possibilities and classical outcomes. Some suggest that consciousness is necessary to complete the measurement process. Others propose that measurement occurs through any interaction that leaves a permanent record, regardless of conscious awareness. Your transition into dream consciousness might offer a unique window into this quantum measurement paradox as a psychological parallel. During waking consciousness, your mind constantly acts as an observer, selecting specific thoughts and perceptions from the vast field of possibilities available to awareness. This process of selection and attention bears a remarkable resemblance to quantum measurement. You're constantly narrowing the superposition of possible mental states into specific, sequential experiences. But in dreams, this active observation function becomes much more passive. Instead of selecting and organizing your experience, you tend to simply witness whatever unfolds. You're still conscious in dreams, but it's a different kind of consciousness. Less controlling, less analytical, more receptive to whatever emerges. This shift might create conditions where you can experience something closer to uncollapsed or overlapping mental possibilities, rather than fully resolved interpretations. In dreams, contradictory elements can coexist without the usual pressure to resolve them into coherent narratives. You can be in multiple places simultaneously, experience events in impossible temporal sequences, and encounter combinations of memory and imagination that would be immediately rejected by your waking analytical mind. As you consider this, notice how your own consciousness operates right now as you listen. You're actively attending to these words while simultaneously managing awareness of your surroundings, your bodily sensations, and your internal responses to these ideas. Your waking consciousness is constantly making choices about what to focus on, what to think about these concepts, how to integrate them with your existing knowledge. This active, selective quality of waking consciousness might be what physicists would recognize as quantum measurement in action when used metaphorically. You're continuously collapsing the superposition of possible thoughts and experiences into specific, definite mental states. But in dreams, this selection function relaxes, potentially allowing access to a broader field of mental possibility. Dreams routinely present you with spaces that defy the laws of physics and logic, yet feel completely navigable while you're experiencing them. You might find yourself in a house that's somehow larger on the inside than the outside, or walking through doorways that lead to entirely different worlds. These impossible architectures aren't random. They often carry deep emotional or symbolic meaning that feels immediately comprehensible within the dream. This ability of dreams to create meaningful impossibilities mirrors something fundamental about quantum geometry in abstract terms. In the quantum realm, particles can be in multiple locations simultaneously, can tunnel through barriers they shouldn't be able to cross, and can be connected across vast distances through entanglement. The normal rules of space and separation that govern our everyday experience simply don't apply at microscopic scales. Your dreaming mind seems to have natural access to this kind of non-classical spatial logic. Dream spaces can overlap, interpenetrate, and transform in ways that would be impossible in classical physics, but that make perfect sense within the probabilistic geometry of quantum mechanics. As a metaphorical comparison, a single dream location might simultaneously be your childhood bedroom, your current workplace, and a completely imaginary landscape, all without any sense of contradiction. Recent research into the neural mechanisms of spatial processing during REM sleep has revealed fascinating patterns. The brain regions responsible for creating your sense of space and location show unusual activity during dreams, generating patterns that don't correspond to any real physical environment. Instead of representing specific locations, these areas seem to be creating hybrid spaces that combine elements from multiple memories and experiences. This neural activity might be the biological equivalent of quantum superposition in spatial processing in a descriptive, not literal sense. Instead of constructing a single, coherent representation of space, as it does during waking consciousness, your dreaming brain appears to maintain multiple overlapping spatial representations simultaneously. You experience these as the fluid, transforming environments that characterize dream landscapes. The emotional resonance of these impossible dream spaces might provide clues about why quantum-like processing occurs during sleep. Dreams don't seem to be primarily concerned with accurate representation of external reality. Instead, they appear to be processing the emotional and symbolic significance of your experiences, finding connections and patterns that transcend literal spatial and temporal relationships. This suggests that the quantum-like properties of dream consciousness might serve a specific functional purpose. By allowing multiple possibilities to coexist without forcing them into classical logical relationships, dreams might enable forms of information integration and emotional processing that wouldn't be possible under the constraints of ordinary waking logic. As you continue this journey through the intersection of quantum mechanics and dream consciousness, consider the possibility that individual minds might be connected through shared psychological or symbolic patterns rather than direct physical mechanisms. This idea ventures into highly speculative territory, but it's worth exploring given the mysterious similarities that often appear in human dream experiences across cultures and individuals. Carl Jung proposed the concept of a collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the unconscious mind shared by all humanity, containing universal symbols and patterns that appear in myths, dreams, and stories across different cultures. While Jung's ideas were primarily psychological rather than physical, they raise intriguing questions about whether individual consciousnesses might be connected through mechanisms we don't yet fully understand. In quantum field theory, Particles are understood as excitations in underlying quantum fields that permeate all of space. These fields connect everything in the universe through subtle but measurable influences. Some speculative interpretations suggest that consciousness itself might be influenced by field-like processes, raising the possibility that individual minds could show correlated patterns without implying direct information transfer. This remains a highly speculative idea without scientific consensus, but it offers an interesting framework for thinking about why certain dream symbols, narratives, and experiences appear with remarkable consistency across different individuals and cultures. If consciousness does operate according to principles that resemble quantum behavior, and if these principles allow for non-local correlations at the physical level, then the boundaries between individual minds might be more psychologically permeable than we typically assume. Dreams of flying, falling, being chased, or finding oneself in vast empty spaces appear across human cultures with striking regularity. The emotional textures of these experiences often feel universal, despite the specific details varying according to individual life circumstances. This could simply reflect shared human psychology and common life experiences, but it might also suggest something deeper about the shared architecture of human cognition. The idea that quantum fields might underlie collective aspects of human experience extends beyond dreams into other areas of consciousness research. Some studies have suggested correlations between meditation practices and reduced violence in surrounding communities, though these findings remain controversial and unconfirmed. If verified, such effects might indicate that consciousness can influence social and behavioral dynamics in ways that transcend individual action. Take a moment to reflect on your own experience of this possibility. Have you ever had dreams that felt like they came from somewhere beyond your personal memory and experience? Have you encountered symbols or narratives in dreams that seemed to carry meaning you couldn't quite explain but somehow understood? While these experiences could have many explanations, they hint at the possibility that dream consciousness might access layers of experience that extend beyond individual memory. Dreams often accomplish something that seems impossible from the perspective of waking consciousness. They can provide emotional resolution and healing for situations that have no logical solution in ordinary reality. You might dream of reconciling with someone who has died, resolving conflicts through impossible conversations, or finding peace with circumstances that remain difficult in your waking life. These dream experiences can provide genuine emotional relief and insight despite their logical impossibility. This healing capacity of dreams might be related to their quantum-like ability to maintain multiple, contradictory states simultaneously at a psychological level. In waking consciousness, unresolved conflicts create psychological tension because the rational mind demands coherent narratives and clear outcomes. You need to know whether someone forgives you, whether a relationship can be repaired, whether a difficult situation will improve. Dreams sidestep these logical constraints entirely. In dream logic, someone can be simultaneously angry and forgiving, absent and present, dead and alive. These overlapping states allow for forms of emotional processing and resolution that transcend the either-or constraints of classical thinking. You can experience forgiveness without requiring the other person to actually forgive you. You can find closure without needing external circumstances to change. This isn't wishful thinking or psychological escapism. It appears to be a fundamental feature of how consciousness processes emotional information when freed from the constraints of logical analysis. The quantum-like properties of dream consciousness might allow access to resolution states that exist in psychological potential, even if they haven't manifested in external reality. Recent research into the therapeutic effects of dreaming has revealed that REM sleep plays a crucial role in emotional regulation and psychological healing. People deprived of REM sleep show increased difficulty processing emotional memories and adapting to stressful situations. The specific content of dreams also appears to influence emotional well-being, with dreams that provide symbolic resolution often corresponding to improved psychological functioning. This suggests that the impossible logic of dreams might serve essential functions that couldn't be accomplished through rational, linear thinking alone. By allowing contradictory emotional states to coexist and interact, dreams might enable forms of psychological integration that parallel complex information processing seen in other biological systems. The implications extend beyond individual healing to questions about the nature of reality itself as experienced by consciousness. If consciousness can access overlapping possibility states during dreams that provide genuine insight and resolution, this suggests that the realm of possibility might be more experientially real and more accessible than our everyday waking awareness indicates. As you absorb these ideas, notice whether they resonate with your own experience of dreams as sources of insight or healing. Have you ever awakened from a dream feeling that something important had been resolved, even if you couldn't explain how or why? This might reflect your consciousness engaging with deep integrative processes where contradictions can coexist and new understandings can emerge. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness remains one of the most profound mysteries in science, and dreams might offer one of our most direct experiential windows into exploring this connection. As we continue exploring these ideas, we'll delve even deeper into what quantum consciousness might mean for our understanding of reality, identity, and the nature of existence itself. Each morning, as you transition from dream to waking consciousness, you participate in what might be one of the most profound cognitive processes occurring in everyday life. The moment you wake up and begin to remember your dream, something remarkable happens. The fluid, superposition-like experience of the dream begins to collapse into a linear narrative that your waking mind can grasp and remember. This process bears an uncanny resemblance to quantum measurement as an analogy, where the act of observation transforms a superposition of possibilities into a single, definite outcome. In dreams, you experience multiple contradictory states simultaneously without conflict. But the moment your analytical waking consciousness engages, it begins organizing these experiences into sequences that make logical sense, often losing much of the dream's original quantum-like quality in the process. Notice how this feels when you try to remember a dream right now. Can you recall the experience of knowing something was simultaneously true and false within the dream, or of being in multiple places at once? These memories often feel elusive because your waking mind struggles to maintain the overlapping states that felt natural during the dream itself. Some researchers propose that this transition from dream to waking consciousness might represent a biological example of decoherence-like processes, where complex overlapping mental states simplify as they interact with waking awareness. As your brain shifts from the altered neurochemistry of REM sleep to the different chemical environment of waking consciousness, the dream's information processing might naturally reorganize into the more classical patterns of everyday thinking. This isn't to suggest that dreams are literally quantum mechanical processes. This remains a speculative idea without scientific consensus. But the parallels are striking enough to offer new ways of understanding both the nature of consciousness and the mystery of why dreams feel so fundamentally different from waking experience. The difficulty of maintaining dream logic in waking consciousness might also explain why spiritual and mystical traditions throughout history have emphasized the importance of altered states of awareness. These traditions seem to recognize intuitively that ordinary waking consciousness, while essential for navigating practical reality, might filter out access to deeper layers of experience that become available when the usual logical constraints are relaxed. Consider how this might apply to your own experience of creativity, insight, or spiritual awareness. Many people report that their most profound realizations come not through logical analysis, but through moments when ordinary thinking becomes quiet and something else emerges, moments that might share characteristics with the quantum-like processing that occurs during dreams. Lucid dreaming presents a fascinating paradox within our exploration of quantum consciousness. When you become aware that you're dreaming while still within the dream, you create a unique situation where the observing consciousness becomes active within what might otherwise be a highly flexible, experiential state. This raises intriguing questions about the relationship between awareness and the organization of experience. In ordinary dreams, your consciousness floats passively through whatever scenarios emerge, accepting impossible combinations without question. But in lucid dreams, you become an active observer within the dream state, capable of making choices and directing the dream narrative. This shift in the observer function might represent a biological example of how consciousness interacts with complex internal simulations. Some interpretations suggest that lucid dreaming allows you to witness the process of experience formation from the inside. Instead of simply experiencing the collapsed, linear narrative that you remember upon waking, you might be observing the moment-by-moment organization of dream possibilities into specific experiences. This could explain why lucid dreamers often report a sense of accessing a deeper layer of awareness, as if they're seeing behind the curtain of ordinary consciousness. The ability to maintain awareness within the dream state might also demonstrate something important about the flexibility of consciousness itself. If consciousness can operate according to different rules during dreams, accepting overlapping states that would be impossible in waking life, then perhaps these altered modes of awareness represent untapped potentials rather than mere curiosities. Research into lucid dreaming has revealed fascinating patterns in brain activity during these states. The areas associated with self-awareness show increased activity compared to ordinary dreams, while still maintaining many of the neurochemical characteristics of REM sleep. This suggests a hybrid state where aspects of waking consciousness become available within the altered processing mode of dreams. This hybrid quality might offer clues about the nature of consciousness more generally. Perhaps the sharp distinction we usually draw between waking and dreaming consciousness represents only a limited view of what awareness can be. The quantum-like properties of dream consciousness might not be confined to sleep, but could potentially become accessible during waking life under certain conditions. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences of heightened awareness or altered consciousness. Have you ever felt that ordinary reality became more fluid, or that impossible things seem possible? These moments might represent brief access to the same flexible cognitive processing modes that characterize dream consciousness. Dreams often contain vast amounts of information, compressed into brief sequences or single images. You might dream of a complex relationship with someone you've never met, yet within the dream, you have access to years of shared history, emotional dynamics, and intimate knowledge of their character. This information doesn't exist in your actual memory, yet it feels completely real and detailed within the dream experience. This phenomenon resembles what physicists call the holographic principle as a metaphor, the idea that complex information can be represented in compact forms. In dreams, single images or brief interactions often contain compressed information about complex emotional states, relationships, or life situations that would require extensive narrative to express in waking consciousness. The holographic quality of dream memory might reflect highly distributed neural processing. In complex systems, information can be encoded across networks rather than stored in single locations. If consciousness does operate through such distributed processes, then dreams might provide access to this richly interconnected information network. This could explain why dream symbols often feel meaningful in ways that extend far beyond their literal content. A simple image in a dream, a house, a road, a face, can carry emotional and symbolic weight that encompasses vast territories of personal meaning. The integrative processing of dream consciousness might allow access to information patterns containing multiple layers of significance simultaneously. Consider how this might relate to the way insights and creative solutions sometimes emerge suddenly into consciousness. The aha moment of understanding often feels like information that was somehow already present suddenly becoming accessible to awareness. This might reflect the convergence of multiple overlapping ideas into a conscious realization. The holographic nature of dream memory also suggests that the boundary between individual memory and broader experience might be more permeable than we typically assume. If information is distributed across networks rather than stored in isolated units, then the source of dream content might extend beyond individual memories into shared cognitive patterns, though this remains a speculative possibility. While we explore these speculative connections between quantum mechanics and consciousness, it's worth considering one of the most mysterious aspects of quantum physics: entanglement. When particles become quantum entangled, they remain correlated across any distance, with measurements on one influencing the state of the other. This phenomenon raises intriguing questions about the nature of connection and separation at the deepest levels of reality. Some interpretations suggest that if consciousness does involve quantum-like processes, then individual minds might show correlated patterns under certain conditions. This remains a highly speculative idea without scientific consensus, but it offers an interesting framework for thinking about experiences that seem to transcend individual boundaries, such as shared emotional states that emerge in groups. Throughout history, people have reported dreams that seem to connect them with distant loved ones, provide information they couldn't have known through ordinary means, or offer insights into situations they weren't directly involved with. While these experiences could have many conventional explanations, they highlight the depth of meaning people attribute to dream experiences, rather than establishing physical connections. The quantum entanglement interpretation of such experiences would suggest correlation rather than communication, allowing for patterns of similarity without implying direct information transfer. During dreams, when the usual boundaries maintained by analytical thinking are relaxed, these correlations might become more noticeable in subjective experience. This is, of course, a highly speculative idea that extends far beyond current scientific evidence. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness remains one of the deepest unsolved problems in science. But the exploration of these possibilities can deepen our appreciation for the mysterious nature of awareness itself and the profound questions that arise when we take seriously the implications of quantum physics for understanding reality. As you consider these ideas, notice whether you've had experiences that felt like connections beyond the ordinary boundaries of individual consciousness. Perhaps moments in dreams, meditation, or deep emotional states where the sense of separation dissolved and something larger became apparent. While such experiences could have many explanations, they point to aspects of consciousness that remain mysterious and worthy of continued exploration from a subjective and experiential perspective. If dreams do operate according to quantum-like principles as a metaphor, this could have profound implications for understanding their therapeutic and healing potential. Traditional approaches to dream analysis often focus on symbolic interpretation or the processing of daily experiences. But a quantum perspective suggests that dreams might serve functions that transcend linear psychological processing at the level of lived experience. The superposition states that characterize dream consciousness in an experiential sense might allow for forms of emotional healing that aren't possible through conventional therapeutic approaches. In dreams, you can experience resolution of conflicts that have no solution in external reality. Find peace with situations that remain difficult in waking life, and access states of forgiveness, understanding, or acceptance that transcend the limitations of your ordinary mental processes. This healing capacity might emerge from the quantum-like ability of dream consciousness to maintain contradictory states simultaneously within subjective awareness. While waking consciousness demands logical consistency and clear outcomes, dream consciousness can embrace paradox and ambiguity in ways that allow new forms of integration and resolution to emerge. Some therapeutic approaches have begun exploring these possibilities, using techniques that work with the non-linear and associative properties of dream consciousness, rather than trying to translate dream content into linear narrative. These approaches recognize that the healing power of dreams might lie not in their symbolic meaning, but in their ability to access information processing modes that transcend ordinary logical constraints within the mind. The implications extend beyond individual healing to questions about the nature of psychological transformation more generally. If consciousness can access overlapping possibility states during dreams, this suggests that the potential for change and growth might be far greater than conventional psychology assumes. The solutions to personal challenges might exist as psychological potential, waiting to be accessed through states of consciousness that allow multiple possibilities to coexist. This remains a speculative area where scientific research is just beginning to explore the intersection of quantum mechanics, consciousness, and healing. But the framework offers new ways of understanding why dreams have been recognized throughout human history as sources of wisdom, guidance, and transformation that transcend ordinary rational thinking. Take a moment to reflect on your own experience of dreams as sources of insight or healing. Have you ever awakened from a dream feeling that something important had shifted, even if you couldn't explain exactly what had changed? This might reflect your consciousness, accessing deep integrative mental states where healing potentials coexist, ready to be organized into experience when the conditions are right. As we near the culmination of our exploration into the quantum nature of dream consciousness, it's important to acknowledge the vast territories that remain unmapped in our understanding of these phenomena. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness represents one of the deepest frontiers in human knowledge, where the most fundamental questions about the nature of reality and awareness intersect. Current neuroscience can explain many aspects of how the brain generates consciousness, but the subjective experience of being aware, what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, remains profoundly mysterious. We can map neural correlates of conscious states, track the flow of information through brain networks, and even influence consciousness through various interventions. But how physical processes give rise to subjective experience remains as puzzling as ever. Quantum mechanics, meanwhile, reveals a universe that is far stranger and more interconnected than our everyday experience suggests. At the deepest level, reality appears to be fundamentally relational, rather than consisting of independent objects. Particles exist in superposition until observed. Space and time emerge from deeper quantum processes. The act of measurement appears to play a fundamental role in determining what becomes real within physical theory. The intersection of these two mysteries, consciousness and quantum mechanics, opens up possibilities that challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence. If consciousness does involve quantum processes in ways not yet understood, then the boundary between mind and matter, between observer and observed, between self and universe, might be far more fluid than we typically imagine conceptually. Dreams might represent one of our most direct access points to these deeper layers of reality at the level of experience. In the quantum-like processing of dream consciousness, we might glimpse the fundamental nature of awareness itself, not as something generated by the brain, but as something in which the brain participates phenomenologically. Not as an emergent property of complex computation, but as a feature of experience that becomes organized and focused through biological processes. These ideas remain highly speculative, and it's crucial to remember that speculation is not the same as scientific fact. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness is an active area of research where many fundamental questions remain unanswered. What we can say with confidence is that both consciousness and quantum mechanics reveal aspects of reality that transcend our ordinary intuitions and invite us to expand our understanding of what existence might be. As you sit with these ideas, notice how they feel in your awareness. Do they resonate with your own sense of what consciousness might be? Do they suggest new ways of understanding your relationship to the universe and to other conscious beings? The exploration of these questions might be as important as finding definitive answers, opening us to wonder and possibility in ways that enrich our experience of being alive. What does it mean to live with an awareness of the quantum nature of reality and consciousness as a scientific and philosophical framework? How might understanding the parallels between dreams and quantum mechanics change the way you experience your daily life, your relationships, and your sense of what's possible? One implication is that the sharp boundaries we usually draw between different states of consciousness, between self and other, between possible and actual, might be more fluid than we typically recognize in lived experience. If dreams reveal quantum-like properties of consciousness, then these properties might be present, though usually hidden, in all states of awareness. This doesn't mean that waking life is just another dream or that physical reality is illusory. Rather, it suggests that consciousness itself might be far more flexible and expansive than we usually allow ourselves to experience. The quantum-like processing that becomes obvious during dreams might be available as a cognitive resource during waking life, offering access to creative solutions, intuitive insights, and forms of understanding that transcend linear thinking. Many contemplative traditions have recognized this possibility, developing practices that cultivate states of awareness where ordinary logical constraints are relaxed and deeper forms of knowing become accessible. Meditation, prayer, artistic creation, and other practices that quiet analytical thinking might create conditions similar to those that allow quantum-like processing during dreams within the mind. The holographic nature of quantum information also suggests that each moment of experience might contain far more than we typically recognize conceptually. If consciousness operates according to quantum-inspired principles, then every thought, perception, and feeling might be connected to vast networks of meaning and possibility that extend beyond individual awareness in interpretive terms. This perspective invites a different relationship to uncertainty and ambiguity. Instead of always seeking definite answers and clear outcomes, we might learn to appreciate the creative potential that exists in overlapping possibility states, moments when multiple interpretations coexist and new forms of understanding can emerge. The quantum perspective also suggests that the observer function of consciousness plays a far more active role in shaping reality than we typically acknowledge at the level of experience, not in the sense of magical thinking or wishful manifestation, but in recognizing that awareness participates in how reality is organized and interpreted in conscious experience. As you move through your daily life, you might experiment with bringing some of the openness and receptivity of dream consciousness into waking awareness. This could involve paying attention to the spaces between thoughts, noticing how different states of attention reveal different aspects of reality, or simply remaining curious about the mystery of being conscious in a quantum universe. Throughout this exploration, we've journeyed from the familiar territory of dream experience into the strange landscape of quantum mechanics and back again, finding unexpected connections and parallel mysteries along the way. But perhaps the most important discovery is not any specific insight about consciousness or quantum physics, but rather the recognition that reality is far more mysterious and wonderful than our everyday experience typically reveals. The quantum universe is not just a theoretical construct studied by physicists in laboratories. It's the actual universe we inhabit every moment of our lives. The particles that make up your body exist in quantum superposition until measured according to physical theory. The light that allows you to see carries quantum information across vast distances. The processes that generate your thoughts and experiences might themselves involve quantum effects indirectly, in ways we're only beginning to understand. Dreams offer a nightly reminder that consciousness is capable of far more than we typically recognize. In the theatre of sleep, your mind routinely creates experiences that transcend the logical constraints of waking life, suggesting that the boundaries of what's possible might be far more expansive than we usually allow ourselves to imagine psychologically. This doesn't require believing in any particular theory about quantum consciousness or accepting speculative ideas as scientific fact. The mystery remains profound, regardless of how it's ultimately explained. The fact that consciousness exists at all in a universe of quantum fields and particle interactions is perhaps the most extraordinary phenomenon we know of. What matters is maintaining a sense of wonder and openness to the possibility that reality is stranger, more interconnected, and more alive than our everyday experience typically reveals. The quantum universe invites us to hold our assumptions lightly, to remain curious about the nature of existence and to appreciate the profound mystery of being aware in a cosmos that appears to be fundamentally complex in ways we're only beginning to glimpse. As you continue your own exploration of consciousness and reality, remember that every night offers an opportunity to participate in the mystery directly. Your dreams are not just random neural activity or simple memory processing, but invitations to experience consciousness operating according to different rules that might reveal something essential about the nature of awareness itself from an experiential standpoint. Whether quantum mechanics ultimately explains consciousness, or consciousness explains quantum mechanics, or both emerge from something even deeper and more mysterious, the exploration enriches our appreciation for the extraordinary nature of existence and our place within the vast interconnected web of reality. As this particular exploration draws toward its close, we arrive not at answers, but at deeper questions, not at conclusions, but at invitations to continued wonder. The relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness remains one of the great mysteries of our time, and dreams continue to offer tantalizing clues about the nature of awareness and reality. What we've discovered is that the impossible experiences of dream consciousness might not be anomalies to be explained away, but windows into fundamental aspects of how awareness operates when freed from the constraints of classical logic within the mind. The quantum-like properties of dreams, superposition, non-locality, the observer effect, suggest that consciousness itself might be far more flexible and multidimensional in its experiential nature. This exploration points toward a vision of reality that is more fluid, more interconnected, and more alive than the mechanical universe of classical physics. It suggests that consciousness is not something that emerges accidentally from complex arrangements of matter, but something that might be deeply woven into the structure of experience itself as we perceive it. The implications extend far beyond academic questions about the nature of mind and matter. They touch on the most personal aspects of human experience, our sense of meaning, our relationship to others, our understanding of what's possible in life. If consciousness does operate according to quantum-inspired principles, then the potential for transformation, healing, and creative breakthrough might be far greater than we typically imagine within psychological limits. Each night as you drift into sleep, you participate in this mystery directly. Your consciousness shifts into modes of processing that transcend ordinary logic, creating experiences that feel completely real despite being impossible according to classical physics. These nightly journeys into the symbolic and non-linear realm of dreams might be preparing us for a broader understanding of what consciousness can be. The questions we've explored together about the nature of observation, the reality of superposition states, the relationship between mind and quantum fields are not merely theoretical puzzles. They're invitations to experience consciousness more fully, to remain open to possibilities that transcend our current understanding, and to appreciate the profound mystery of awareness itself. As you move forward from this exploration, carry with you the recognition that every moment of consciousness participates in the same fundamental mystery that manifests so obviously in dreams. The quantum nature of reality is not something distant and abstract, but the very fabric of existence as described by modern physics, in which your awareness arises moment by moment. The dream of understanding consciousness continues, and each of us participates in that dream through our willingness to remain curious, to question our assumptions, and to remain open to the extraordinary nature of what it means to be aware in a quantum universe. Tonight, as you drift into sleep and dreams, remember that you're not just resting your tired mind. You're embarking on a journey into the deepest mysteries of existence, exploring forms of consciousness that might hold keys to understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself at the level of human experience. Sleep well, dream deeply, and continue wondering about the extraordinary gift of awareness in all its quantum possibilities. As we continue deeper into this mystery, something remarkable begins to emerge from the intersection of sleeping consciousness and quantum reality. The more we examine the strange properties of dream states, the more they seem to mirror the fundamental behavior of quantum systems in evocative but non-literal ways. Your dreaming mind appears to operate according to principles that physicists have discovered govern the deepest levels of material reality itself. As an analogy, consider this curious fact. Dreams can persist across multiple sleep cycles throughout a single night, sometimes continuing narratives that began hours earlier, despite periods of dreamless sleep in between. This phenomenon, known as dream continuity, suggests that some aspect of dream consciousness maintains coherence even when the usual neural activity of REM sleep is absent. It's as if the dream exists in a kind of psychological suspension, ready to reactivate when conditions become favourable again. This persistence bears a striking resemblance to quantum coherence as a comparison, where systems can maintain structured states under the right conditions. Just as quantum information can be preserved in carefully isolated systems, dream narratives seem capable of surviving interruptions in the normal sleep architecture, emerging again when REM sleep returns with their impossible logic intact. The implications of this persistence extend beyond the mechanics of sleep itself. If dream consciousness can maintain continuity across interrupted states, this suggests that the non-linear properties of awareness might be more robust and enduring than previously thought. Perhaps the overlapping states that characterize dream experience don't simply dissolve when REM sleep ends, but enter a kind of latent mental state where they remain accessible to consciousness under appropriate conditions. This possibility opens fascinating questions about the relationship between memory and consciousness more generally. Your ability to recall dreams, hours or even days after experiencing them might involve memory processes that operate differently from classical neural memory. Instead of encoding dream experiences as fixed records, your brain might maintain access to integrated experiential states, allowing you to re-experience aspects of dream consciousness even during waking awareness. Take a moment to reflect on your own experience of dream recall. Notice how some dream memories feel different from ordinary memories, more fluid, more emotionally resonant, somehow more alive than typical recollections. This qualitative difference might reflect the distinctive way dream information is stored and accessed, maintaining some of the overlapping qualities that characterized the original experience. Recent discoveries in quantum biology have revealed that living systems routinely harness quantum effects for essential biological functions, challenging the long-held assumption that quantum phenomena are too delicate to survive in the warm, noisy environment of biological cells. These findings provide a scientific foundation for considering how quantum-inspired models might be used to think about brain function during sleep states. The architecture of sleep itself appears remarkably suited to supporting highly synchronized neural processing. During the transition into deep sleep, your brain temperature drops slightly, neural activity becomes more synchronized, and the usual cascade of neurotransmitters that characterize waking consciousness gives way to a simplified chemical environment dominated by acetylcholine. These conditions, lower temperature, reduced noise, chemical isolation, loosely resemble the environments physicists create in laboratories to study quantum systems. The microtubule structures within neurons, which some researchers propose as possible sites for quantum processing, show enhanced organization during sleep. These cylindrical protein assemblies form regular, crystalline patterns that have been theorized to potentially support unusual information dynamics. During sleep, when the usual electrical activity of neural communication is reduced, these structures might theoretically allow certain processes to persist longer than would be possible during the chaotic activity of waking consciousness. It's important to emphasize that no experimental evidence currently demonstrates quantum computation occurring in human neurons during sleep. These ideas remain theoretical frameworks rather than established biological mechanisms. What's particularly intriguing is that the brain's glymphatic system, which clears metabolic waste during sleep, becomes most active during the same deep sleep stages, when neural synchronization is highest. This suggests that sleep might serve a dual function, clearing physical toxins while also allowing deep integrative neural processing that would be disrupted by the constant activity of waking neural networks. Some interpretations suggest that this processing during sleep might be essential for the integration of experiences that occurs during rest. The overlapping states that become possible in the quiet environment of sleep could allow the brain to explore combinations of memories, emotions, and insights that wouldn't be accessible through classical, linear computation alone. This remains speculative territory without scientific consensus, but the framework offers new ways of understanding why sleep is so essential for learning, creativity, and emotional processing. If the brain does engage in unusually flexible information processing during rest, then the restorative function of sleep might involve far more than simple cellular repair and memory consolidation. One of the most profound challenges in studying consciousness scientifically is what researchers call the observer's dilemma. How can consciousness study itself without fundamentally altering the phenomenon being investigated? This problem becomes even more complex when we consider the possibility that consciousness might involve processes where observation itself changes experience. Traditional neuroscience approaches consciousness by studying neural correlates, the brain activity that accompanies different states of awareness. But this approach necessarily treats consciousness as an object to be observed from the outside, missing the essential subjective dimension that defines conscious experience. It's like trying to understand the experience of seeing colour by studying only the physics of light wavelengths, without any access to the qualitative experience of redness or blueness. The quantum measurement problem adds another layer of complexity to this dilemma as a conceptual parallel. If consciousness does involve non-linear processes, then the act of scientifically observing consciousness might alter the very dynamics that generate subjective experience. The attempt to measure consciousness objectively could change the phenomena we're trying to understand. Dreams present a unique window into this observer's dilemma because they represent states where consciousness observes itself from within altered conditions. During lucid dreams, you become aware of your own awareness while still maintaining access to the highly flexible processing that characterizes dream consciousness. This creates a natural laboratory where consciousness can study itself without the external intervention of scientific instruments. The reports of lucid dreamers provide first-hand accounts of what it feels like to experience overlapping states, fluid identity, and non-linear narrative structure. While these subjective reports can't provide the objective measurements that science typically requires, they offer invaluable insights into the phenomenology of conscious experience. Recent advances in brain imaging technology have begun to bridge this gap between subjective experience and objective measurement. Researchers can now monitor brain activity during lucid dreams, correlating the dreamer's reports of their subjective experience with measurable changes in neural patterns. This approach preserves both the first-person perspective of consciousness and the third-person methodology of science. As you consider this observer's dilemma, notice how it applies to your own self-awareness right now. The very act of paying attention to your consciousness changes what you're aware of. This isn't just a philosophical puzzle, it might be a fundamental feature of how awareness operates in ways that resemble quantum principles at a conceptual level. Dreams regularly violate our ordinary understanding of temporal causality, presenting scenarios where future events seem to influence past experiences or where effects precede their causes in impossible sequences. While most dreams that appear prophetic can be explained through coincidence, selective memory, or the brain's remarkable ability to detect subtle patterns, some cases suggest more intriguing possibilities about the relationship between consciousness and time from a psychological perspective. In quantum mechanics, the relationship between cause and effect becomes ambiguous under certain conditions. Quantum systems can exhibit what physicists call retrocausality, where future measurements appear to influence past states retroactively. While this remains a controversial interpretation of quantum mechanics, it raises fascinating questions about whether consciousness might have access to temporal relationships that transcend linear time as an analogy rather than a literal process. The elastic nature of time in dreams mirrors this quantum temporal ambiguity. You might dream of meeting someone you'll encounter years later, or experience resolution to conflicts that haven't yet occurred in waking life. While these could simply reflect the brain's predictive processing or symbolic representation of psychological patterns, they hint at the possibility that dream consciousness might access information that exists outside the linear time stream of ordinary experience in subjective awareness. Some interpretations suggest that if consciousness does involve quantum processes in ways not yet understood, then the usual constraints of temporal sequence might be relaxed during altered states like dreaming. The superposition states that characterize quantum systems exist outside normal temporal relationships. They encompass all possible outcomes simultaneously until measurement collapses them into specific sequences. Dream consciousness might provide access to these temporal superposition states as experiential metaphors, allowing awareness to sample from the field of possibilities that exists beyond the linear progression of past to future. This wouldn't constitute literal precognition, but rather access to the probability patterns that shape how events unfold over time in psychological experience. Consider your own experience of dreams that seem to anticipate future events or provide insights that later proved relevant to situations you hadn't yet encountered. While these experiences likely have conventional explanations, they point to the mysterious relationship between consciousness, time, and the unfolding of possibilities in ways that challenge our ordinary understanding of causality at the level of meaning-making. This temporal fluidity in dreams might also explain why dream insights often feel timeless, relevant not just to current circumstances, but to recurring patterns that transcend specific situations. The quantum-like processing of dream consciousness might access archetypal patterns that exist outside normal temporal constraints, providing wisdom that feels both ancient and immediately relevant within the mind. Dreams don't occur in isolation, but emerge from the complex ecosystem of your entire life experience, your relationships, environment, cultural context, and the collective, unconscious patterns that human beings share across cultures and historical periods. This ecological dimension of dreaming raises profound questions about the boundaries of individual consciousness and the possibility of shared psychological structures that transcend personal neural networks. The content of your dreams reflects not only your personal memories and concerns, but also symbols, narratives, and emotional patterns that appear consistently across different individuals and cultures. The image of flying appears in dreams worldwide, as do experiences of falling, being chased, or finding oneself in vast empty spaces. These universal dream motifs suggest that individual dream consciousness might be connected to larger patterns that exist beyond personal experience through common cognitive architecture. If consciousness does operate according to quantum principles in a theoretical sense, then the boundaries between individual minds might be more permeable than we typically assume experientially. Quantum entanglement creates non-local correlations between particles regardless of distance, raising the speculative possibility that consciousness could form similar correlations as patterns of meaning rather than physical signals. This remains a highly speculative idea without scientific consensus, but it offers an interesting framework for understanding the collective dimensions of dream experience. The appearance of universal symbols and narratives in dreams might reflect access to shared symbolic or informational patterns that exist at scales larger than individual neural networks. The environmental factors that influence dreaming also suggest connections that extend beyond individual consciousness. Changes in electromagnetic fields, atmospheric pressure, lunar cycles, and seasonal patterns all appear to correlate with variations in dream frequency, intensity, and content. While these correlations could have conventional explanations through their effects on sleep physiology, they hint at the possibility that consciousness might be more sensitive to environmental influences than we currently understand. Take a moment to consider how your own dreams might be influenced by factors beyond your personal psychology. Have you noticed patterns that correlate with natural cycles, geographic locations, or periods when you're in close contact with other people? These observations might provide clues about the ecological nature of consciousness and its connections to larger systems at the level of experience. The therapeutic traditions that work with dreams often emphasize this ecological dimension, recognizing that individual healing occurs within webs of relationship that extend far beyond personal boundaries. If dream consciousness does involve processes that transcend individual neural networks psychologically and socially, then the healing that occurs through dreams might involve transformations in these larger relational contexts as well. Dreams regularly generate emotional experiences that have no equivalent in waking life, feelings that combine contradictory elements in ways that should be psychologically impossible, yet feel completely authentic within the dream state. You might experience simultaneous love and terror, profound sadness mixed with euphoric joy, or complex emotional states that have no names in ordinary language but feel more real than any waking emotion. These impossible emotions might reflect the quantum-like ability of dream consciousness to maintain superposition states in emotional processing at the level of subjective experience. Just as quantum particles can exist in multiple physical states simultaneously, dream consciousness might access emotional superposition states where contradictory feelings coexist without the usual psychological pressure to resolve them into coherent emotional narratives. The mathematics of quantum superposition involves complex probability amplitudes that can interfere constructively or destructively, creating patterns that transcend simple addition of individual components. Similarly, the impossible emotions of dreams might emerge from interference-like interactions between different emotional memories and associations, creating experiences that are greater than the sum of their individual elements. This quantum-like emotional processing might serve important psychological functions that couldn't be accomplished through linear emotional reasoning alone. By allowing contradictory feelings to coexist and interact, dreams might enable forms of emotional integration and healing that transcend the either-or constraints of ordinary psychological processing. Consider the last time you experienced one of these impossible dream emotions, perhaps feeling simultaneously at home and displaced, safe and endangered, known and anonymous. These paradoxical states might reflect your consciousness accessing deep emotional possibility spaces, where multiple potential feelings coexist before being shaped by waking circumstances. The therapeutic implications of this quantum emotional processing are profound. If dreams allow access to emotional superposition states, then they might provide opportunities for healing and integration that go beyond what's possible through conscious emotional work alone. The resolution you sometimes find in dreams for conflicts that remain difficult in waking life might reflect actual transformations in the emotional landscape of possibility, rather than changes in external reality. This remains speculative territory, but the framework offers new ways of understanding why dreams have been recognized throughout human history as sources of emotional wisdom and healing that transcend ordinary psychological understanding. The impossible emotions of dreams might be among our most direct experiences of non-linear emotional integration in action. Throughout history, certain periods have been marked by striking similarities in dream content across large populations, shared symbols, narratives, and emotional themes that appear simultaneously in the dreams of people who have no direct contact with each other. While these collective patterns could have conventional explanations through shared cultural influences or universal human psychology, they raise intriguing questions about possible synchronization of experience between individual consciousnesses. Modern research into dream content has revealed fascinating patterns of synchronicity during periods of collective stress, celebration, or transformation. Natural disasters, social upheavals, and significant cultural shifts often correlate with changes in dream patterns across broad populations. People report similar symbols, emotional tones, and narrative themes appearing in their dreams during these periods, suggesting that individual dream consciousness might be sensitive to shared emotional climates. If consciousness does involve quantum processes in a speculative framework, then the non-local correlations that characterize quantum entanglement might extend conceptually to patterns between individual minds under certain conditions. The relaxed boundaries of dream consciousness might make these correlations more noticeable than they are during the more isolated processing of waking awareness. This doesn't imply that people literally share dreams in a mystical sense, but rather that individual dream consciousness might be influenced by collective psychological and emotional fields that operate at larger scales than personal neural networks. Just as particles can become correlated through quantum entanglement while remaining distinct entities, individual consciousnesses might show correlated patterns while maintaining their separate identities. The implications of this possibility extend beyond dreams to questions about the nature of collective consciousness more generally. If individual minds can exhibit correlated patterns, then phenomena like cultural creativity, social movements, and collective wisdom might involve forms of distributed information processing that transcend individual cognitive capabilities. Take a moment to reflect on your own experience of feeling connected to something larger than individual consciousness. Perhaps moments during dreams, meditation, or periods of deep emotional resonance when the boundaries of personal awareness became more permeable. While these experiences could have many explanations, they point to aspects of consciousness that remain mysterious and worthy of continued exploration. The study of collective dreaming patterns might provide one of the most accessible ways to investigate possible connections between individual minds, offering a natural laboratory where consciousness operates under conditions that might favour shared experiential patterns. The healing that often occurs through dreams presents one of the most compelling examples of how quantum-like consciousness might serve essential psychological functions that transcend classical information processing. Dreams regularly provide resolution, insight, and emotional healing for situations that remain problematic in waking life, suggesting that dream consciousness accesses problem-solving capabilities that operate according to different principles than ordinary logical thinking. The quantum-like ability of dreams to maintain contradictory states in superposition might be crucial to their healing function at the level of mental processing. In waking consciousness, psychological conflicts create tension because the rational mind demands coherent narratives and clear resolutions. Unresolved trauma, relationship difficulties, and existential questions persist precisely because they involve contradictions that can't be easily resolved through linear thinking. Dreams sidestep these logical constraints by allowing all aspects of a conflict to coexist simultaneously without forcing premature resolution. Like quantum systems that explore all possible outcomes in parallel before collapsing into specific results, dream consciousness might process psychological challenges by maintaining access to multiple potential solutions simultaneously in experience. This parallel processing of possibilities might explain why dreams sometimes provide insights or emotional resolutions that feel profound despite being difficult to explain in logical terms. The healing occurs not through rational analysis, but through integrative processing of contradictory elements into new forms of understanding that transcend the original conflict. Recent research into the neuroscience of dream-related healing has revealed that REM sleep plays crucial roles in emotional regulation, memory consolidation, and psychological adaptation. The specific patterns of brain activity during dreams appear to facilitate forms of information integration that don't occur during other states of consciousness. Some interpretations suggest that these healing processes might involve highly parallel neural processing, allowing the brain to explore solution spaces that wouldn't be accessible through classical computation alone. The creative recombination of memories, emotions, and insights that characterizes therapeutic dreams might reflect this parallel exploration of possibilities. This framework offers new ways of understanding therapeutic approaches that work with dreams and altered states of consciousness. Instead of focusing solely on symbolic interpretation or conscious analysis, these approaches might be facilitating access to the non-linear processing capabilities that naturally occur during dream states. Consider your own experience of healing or insight that has emerged through dreams. Notice whether these experiences involved resolution of contradictions that couldn't be solved through ordinary thinking or integration of opposing elements into new forms of understanding. These might be examples of your consciousness accessing flexible cognitive processing modes that transcend classical logical constraints. As we look toward the future of consciousness research, the intersection of quantum mechanics and dream studies offers some of the most promising avenues for understanding the deepest questions about the nature of awareness and its relationship to physical reality. New technologies and theoretical frameworks are beginning to provide tools for investigating these connections with scientific rigor, while respecting the profound mystery at the heart of conscious experience. Advances in brain imaging technology are making it possible to monitor fine-grained neural dynamics with unprecedented precision. Researchers are developing methods to study coherence, synchronization, and information integration in biological systems, and to track how complex neural patterns evolve across different states of consciousness. These tools might eventually allow more direct investigation of the processes underlying dream experience. The field of quantum biology continues to reveal how living systems harness quantum effects for essential functions, providing a scientific foundation for considering quantum-inspired models in neuroscience. As our understanding of biological quantum phenomena deepens, the possibility that consciousness involves complex physical processes not yet fully understood becomes increasingly plausible rather than merely speculative. Theoretical developments in quantum information science are also contributing to new models of consciousness that bridge the gap between subjective experience and physical processes. These models suggest ways that the qualitative aspects of awareness might emerge from complex information processing, while preserving both scientific rigor and the irreducible reality of conscious experience. The study of dreams offers a particularly valuable approach to these investigations because it provides access to altered states of consciousness that might reveal underlying processing dynamics more clearly than ordinary waking awareness. The development of lucid dreaming techniques combined with real-time brain monitoring creates opportunities to study consciousness from both first-person and third-person perspectives simultaneously. Perhaps most importantly, this research is beginning to bridge the traditional divide between scientific and contemplative approaches to understanding consciousness. The recognition that quantum mechanics reveals a universe that is fundamentally relational and observer-dependent open space for integrating insights from meditation traditions, dream work, and other contemplative practices with rigorous scientific investigation without conflating metaphor with mechanism. As you consider the future of this research, notice how it might change your own relationship to consciousness and reality. The recognition that awareness might involve processes that transcend classical intuitions invites a sense of wonder and possibility that enriches ordinary experience while maintaining scientific integrity. The questions we're exploring together about the nature of observation, the reality of superposition states, the relationship between mind and quantum fields, are not merely academic puzzles, but investigations into the deepest nature of what it means to be conscious in a complex universe. As our exploration draws toward its natural pause, we find ourselves not at the end of a journey, but at the beginning of a deeper appreciation for the profound mystery that consciousness represents. The parallels between dream experience and quantum mechanics that we've explored together point toward a vision of reality that is far more interconnected, dynamic, and rich than the mechanistic universe of classical physics. The quantum nature of dreams suggests that every night, as you slip into sleep, you participate directly in non-linear modes of experience that challenge classical assumptions. Your dreaming consciousness doesn't just observe strange phenomena, it embodies flexibility of meaning, fluidity of time and space, and the participatory relationship between awareness and experience. This recognition transforms dreams from mere curiosities of sleep into windows onto the basic nature of consciousness itself. The impossible experiences that feel so natural in dreams might represent not aberrations to be explained away, but glimpses into the deep flexibility of awareness from which all conscious experience emerges. The implications extend far beyond the boundaries of neuroscience and physics into the most personal dimensions of human experience. If consciousness does operate according to quantum principles as a conceptual framework, then the potential for transformation, healing, and creative breakthrough might be far greater than our classical understanding suggests. The solutions to life's challenges might exist in states of possibility, waiting to be accessed through states of awareness that transcend ordinary logical constraints. The healing that occurs through dreams, the insights that emerge from contemplative practice, the creative breakthroughs that arise in moments of relaxed attention. All of these might reflect our natural capacity to access non-linear modes of information processing that reveal possibilities hidden from classical consciousness. This doesn't require believing in any particular theory or accepting speculative ideas as scientific fact. The mystery remains profound regardless of how it's ultimately explained. What matters is maintaining openness to the possibility that consciousness and reality are far more flexible, interconnected, and alive than our everyday experience typically reveals. As you continue your own exploration of consciousness and dreams, remember that you carry within yourself one of the most sophisticated biological systems we know of. A brain capable of generating awareness, processing information in highly parallel ways, and accessing forms of understanding that transcend classical logic. Every moment of consciousness, every dream, every insight represents a manifestation of complex physical and biological processes that connect you to the fundamental creativity of the universe itself. The journey into understanding consciousness is far from complete, and perhaps it never will be. But the exploration itself enriches our appreciation for the extraordinary nature of existence and our place within the vast, interconnected web of reality. Each night as you dream, you participate in this ongoing mystery, contributing your own unique perspective to the enduring questions about the nature of awareness and its relationship to the cosmos that gives it birth. Sleep well tonight, knowing that your dreams are not just random neural activity, but expressions of the remarkable generative capacity of the human mind. And tomorrow, as you wake and return to ordinary consciousness, carry with you the recognition that the impossible becomes possible when awareness opens to new ways of perceiving and integrating experience. The dream continues and consciousness dreams on. In the quiet hours before dawn, something remarkable happens in the sleeping brain that might forever change how we understand the relationship between memory and consciousness. While you dream, your mind doesn't simply replay the events of the day in linear sequence. Instead, it appears to construct what we might call a richly associative memory landscape, a space where past, present, and potential future exist in fluid relationship, allowing memories to combine and recombine in ways that transcend the ordinary constraints of time and logic. This isn't merely poetic language. Recent neuroscience research has revealed that during REM sleep, the brain's memory systems operate in fundamentally different ways than during waking consciousness. The hippocampus, your brain's primary memory center, shows patterns of electrical activity that seem to replay experiences not in chronological order, but in compressed, overlapping sequences that allow distant memories to interact with recent experiences in novel combinations. What's particularly fascinating is how these memory replay patterns during dreams resemble certain aspects of parallel information processing. In advanced computational systems, information can exist in multiple representational states simultaneously before resolving into specific outcomes. Similarly, during dream states, your brain appears to maintain multiple memory associations in parallel, allowing creative connections to emerge that wouldn't be possible through strictly sequential, logical processing. Take a moment to reflect on this as you listen. Can you remember a dream where someone from your childhood appeared in your current workplace, or where you solved a present-day problem using knowledge you'd forgotten you possessed? These aren't random neural misfires, but possible examples of your brain's ability to access multiple memory contexts simultaneously during the altered consciousness of sleep. The implications extend far beyond understanding dreams themselves. If memory formation and retrieval involve these highly associative processes during sleep, this could reshape our understanding of learning, creativity, and the nature of knowledge itself. The insights that sometimes emerge after a good night's sleep might reflect genuine information integration that occurs when the classical constraints of waking consciousness are relaxed. This remains a speculative connection without scientific consensus, but the framework offers new ways of understanding why sleep is so essential for consolidating memories and generating creative insights. The dream landscape might be where your brain performs its most sophisticated integration, finding patterns and solutions that exist beyond the reach of ordinary logical analysis. Every moment of your waking life, you face what philosophers and physicists call the measurement problem, the profound mystery of how definite experiences emerge from the vast field of possibilities that surrounds each moment of awareness. In physics, measurement transforms a range of potential outcomes into concrete, observable results. But what constitutes a measurement? And how does consciousness fit into this fundamental process? During ordinary waking consciousness, your attention constantly selects specific thoughts, perceptions, and experiences from an immense array of possibilities. Right now, as you listen to these words, you're unconsciously filtering out countless other potential objects of awareness, sounds in your environment, sensations in your body, memories that could arise, thoughts that could emerge. This selective process bears a striking resemblance to attention-based filtering mechanisms studied across neuroscience and cognitive science. But in dreams, this filtering function operates very differently. Instead of actively selecting and organizing experiences into logical sequences, dream consciousness seems to float passively through whatever emerges from the unconscious mind. You observe impossible scenarios without the usual analytical framework that demands coherence and consistency. This relaxed filtering function might allow access to richly layered experiential states that are normally constrained during waking awareness. Consider the last vivid dream you remember experiencing. Notice how you accepted contradictory elements without question, perhaps being simultaneously young and old, or finding yourself in multiple locations at once. These superposition-like experiences feel completely natural within the dream state because the organizing function of consciousness is operating according to different principles than during waking awareness. Some interpretations suggest that this shift during dreams might provide insights into the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. If awareness can operate in different organizational modes, actively structuring experience during waking life, and passively allowing multiplicity during dreams, then consciousness might be far more flexible and multidimensional than our everyday experience reveals. This perspective doesn't require accepting any particular interpretation of physics or consciousness. It simply invites recognition that the process of conscious experience might be more complex and varied than we typically acknowledge. The boundary between observer and observed, between consciousness and its contents, might be more fluid than classical models suggest. As you sit with these ideas, notice how your own awareness operates right now. You're simultaneously the observer of these thoughts and the consciousness in which observation occurs. This reflexive quality of awareness, consciousness observing itself, might be one of our most direct encounters with the deep mysteries that lie at the heart of subjective experience. Deep within the architecture of sleep, something profound occurs in how emotional memories connect and influence each other across the vast networks of your personal history. During REM sleep, the brain's emotional processing centers show patterns of activity that suggest memories aren't simply stored as isolated records, but exist in dynamic, interconnected webs where distant experiences can influence each other in ways that transcend linear time and simple association. Research into the neuroscience of emotional memory consolidation has revealed that during dreams, the amygdala, your brain's emotional processing center, becomes highly active while maintaining unusual patterns of connectivity with memory systems throughout the brain. These connections allow emotional themes and patterns to link memories from different periods of your life in ways that often feel more meaningful than chronologically logical. This interconnected nature of emotional memory processing during dreams bears intriguing parallels to non-local patterns of information linkage studied in complex systems. While we can't claim that memories literally become quantum entangled, the metaphor offers a useful framework for understanding how emotional experiences from different times in your life can influence each other during the altered processing of sleep states. You might dream of feeling comforted by a grandparent who passed away years ago while simultaneously working through a current relationship challenge. Within the dream, these temporal impossibilities feel perfectly natural because emotional memory processing during sleep operates according to associative rather than chronological principles. The emotional resonance between experiences becomes more important than their logical relationship in time. This emotional linkage of memories might serve crucial psychological functions that couldn't be accomplished through linear processing alone. By allowing distant emotional experiences to interact and influence each other, dreams might enable forms of healing and integration that transcend the usual constraints of conscious analysis. Take a breath and consider how this might apply to your own emotional landscape. Have you ever awakened from a dream feeling that some long-standing emotional pattern had shifted, even if you couldn't explain exactly how or why? These experiences might reflect the brain's ability to process emotional information across multiple contextual layers, where healing possibilities can coexist and influence each other. The therapeutic implications of this emotional integration are profound. If dreams allow emotional memories to interact across time in these non-linear ways, then sleep itself might be one of our most powerful natural healing processes. Not just for processing daily stress, but for reshaping the emotional patterns that influence our entire life experience. This remains a speculative interpretation that extends beyond current scientific consensus, but it offers new ways of understanding why dreams have been recognized throughout human history as sources of emotional wisdom and transformation that transcend ordinary psychological understanding. Across the globe, every night, billions of human beings slip into sleep and enter dream states that share remarkable similarities, despite vast differences in culture, language, and personal experience. The universal nature of certain dream themes, flying, falling, being chased, finding oneself unprepared for important events, suggests that individual dream consciousness might be connected to larger patterns that transcend personal experience. The biologist Rupert Sheldrake proposed the concept of morphic resonance, the idea that similar patterns of activity can influence each other across space and time through fields that transcend physical causation. While this remains a controversial hypothesis without mainstream scientific acceptance, it offers an intriguing framework for thinking about the collective dimensions of dream experience as a metaphor rather than a mechanism. If consciousness does involve processes that resemble quantum principles at a theoretical level, then the non-local correlations that characterize quantum entanglement might offer conceptual insight into how patterns could appear across different minds under certain conditions. The relaxed boundaries of dream consciousness might make these shared patterns more noticeable than they are during the more compartmentalized processing of waking awareness. This doesn't suggest that people literally share dreams in a mystical sense, but rather that individual dream consciousness might be influenced by collective psychological and cultural information fields that operate at scales larger than personal experience. Just as migrating birds navigate using subtle physical cues, human consciousness might be sensitive to broader informational patterns that become accessible during altered states like dreaming. Recent research into global patterns of dream content has revealed fascinating correlations during periods of collective stress or transformation. Natural disasters, social upheavals, and significant cultural shifts often correspond with changes in dream patterns across broad populations, with people reporting similar symbols, emotional tones, and narrative themes appearing in their dreams during these periods. These collective patterns could have conventional explanations through shared media exposure or universal human psychology, but they also hint at the possibility that consciousness might be more interconnected than our individualistic culture typically acknowledges. The systems-level perspective suggests that boundaries between separate minds may be more permeable in experience than classical neuroscience assumes. As you consider this possibility, notice whether you've experienced moments during dreams, meditation, or deep contemplation when the sense of individual separation softened and something larger became apparent. While such experiences could have many explanations, they point to aspects of consciousness that remain mysterious and worthy of continued exploration. The study of collective dreaming patterns might provide one of the most accessible ways to investigate possible connections between individual consciousnesses, offering a natural laboratory where awareness operates under conditions that might favor shared experiential dynamics. In the hidden depths of sleep, your brain appears to engage in a sophisticated form of highly parallel information processing that might help explain why rest is so essential for psychological healing and emotional integration. During the altered neurochemistry of REM sleep, when the usual constraints of logical analysis are relaxed, consciousness seems capable of processing emotional information in ways that transcend the either-or limitations of classical thinking. Traditional psychotherapy often focuses on resolving conflicts through rational analysis and conscious insight. While these approaches can be profoundly helpful, they sometimes encounter limitations when dealing with traumas or emotional patterns that resist logical resolution. Dreams offer a different approach entirely, one that embraces paradox and allows contradictory elements to coexist without forcing premature closure. In physics, systems can exist in superposition states, where seemingly contradictory properties coexist until resolved through interaction. Similarly, dream consciousness appears capable of maintaining emotional superposition states, where conflicting feelings, memories, and possibilities can interact without the usual psychological pressure to resolve them into coherent narratives. This might explain why dreams sometimes provide healing and insight for situations that remain problematic in waking life. The non-linear processing of dream consciousness can explore multiple resolution states simultaneously, finding solutions that exist in the space between opposing forces, rather than choosing one side over another. Consider a recurring relationship conflict that you've struggled to resolve through conscious analysis. In dreams, you might experience scenarios where both perspectives are simultaneously valid, where forgiveness and anger coexist, where past and present healing occur in impossible temporal sequences. These dream experiences often leave you with a sense of resolution that transcends logical understanding. Recent research into the neuroscience of sleep and emotional processing has revealed that REM sleep plays crucial roles in integrating emotional memories and reducing the intensity of traumatic associations. The specific patterns of brain activity during dreams appear to facilitate forms of information processing that allow emotional healing to occur through mechanisms that don't require conscious control or understanding. Some interpretations suggest that these healing processes might involve highly parallel neural processing, allowing the brain to explore solution spaces that wouldn't be accessible through linear computation alone. The creative recombination of memories, emotions, and insights that characterizes therapeutic dreams might reflect this parallel exploration of multiple possibility states. This framework offers new ways of understanding therapeutic approaches that work with dreams, altered states, and the unconscious mind. Instead of focusing solely on conscious insight and rational analysis, these approaches might be facilitating access to the integrative processing capacities that naturally occur during sleep states. If you enjoy drifting through these explorations without interruption, members get every episode 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them whenever you feel ready. Dreams regularly present you with architectures that defy every law of physics and geometry, yet feel completely navigable and meaningful while you're experiencing them. You might find yourself climbing stairs that lead both up and down simultaneously, or walking through doorways that somehow connect your childhood bedroom to an alien landscape. These impossible spaces aren't random constructions. They often carry profound emotional and symbolic significance that feels immediately comprehensible within the dream state. This ability of dreams to create meaningful impossibilities mirrors something fundamental about non-classical representations of space. In physics, particles don't always follow intuitive trajectories, but exist as probability distributions that can span multiple locations. The normal rules of distance and separation that govern our everyday experience don't always apply in the same way at deeper levels of description. Your dreaming mind seems to have natural access to this kind of fluid spatial logic. Dream environments can overlap, interpenetrate, and transform in ways that would be impossible in classical geometry, but make sense within probabilistic representations. A single dream location might simultaneously be your current home, a place from your past, and a completely imaginary landscape, all without any sense of contradiction. Recent neuroscience research into spatial processing during REM sleep has revealed fascinating patterns. The brain regions responsible for creating your sense of place and location show unusual activity during dreams, generating neural patterns that don't correspond to any real physical environment. Instead of representing specific locations, these areas seem to be creating hybrid spaces that combine elements from multiple memories and experiences. This neural activity might represent the biological equivalent of maintaining multiple spatial representations simultaneously. Instead of constructing a single, coherent representation of space, as it does during waking consciousness, your dreaming brain appears to sustain overlapping spatial models at the same time. You experience these as the fluid, transforming environments that characterize dream landscapes. The emotional resonance of these impossible dream spaces might provide clues about why this kind of processing occurs during sleep. Dreams don't seem primarily concerned with accurate representation of external reality. Instead, they appear to be processing the emotional and symbolic significance of your experiences, finding connections and patterns that transcend literal spatial and temporal relationships. Take a moment to remember an impossible dream space you've experienced. Perhaps a house that was somehow larger on the inside than the outside, or a landscape that combined elements from multiple real places in impossible ways. Notice how these spaces often felt emotionally significant rather than merely strange, as if the impossible geometry was expressing something important about your inner experience. This suggests that the non-linear properties of dream consciousness might serve specific functional purposes. By allowing multiple spatial possibilities to coexist without forcing them into classical logical relationships, dreams might enable forms of emotional and psychological processing that wouldn't be possible under the constraints of ordinary geometric thinking. Perhaps nowhere is the flexible nature of dream consciousness more apparent than in the way identity operates during sleep. In dreams, you can simultaneously be yourself and someone else, young and old, observer and participant, without any sense of contradiction. This multiplicity of identity states might offer profound insights into the constructed nature of the self we experience during waking life. During ordinary waking consciousness, your sense of identity feels solid and continuous. You have a coherent narrative about who you are, what you believe, where you've come from, and where you're going. This unified sense of self is maintained through complex cognitive processes that continuously integrate memories, experiences, and social feedback into a consistent identity framework. But in dreams, this identity construction process operates very differently. The usual mechanisms that maintain a consistent sense of self become relaxed, allowing multiple identity states to coexist in ways that can be compared to quantum superposition. You might experience being both yourself and your parent, both child and adult, both human and something else entirely, all within the same dream sequence. This fluid identity processing during dreams might reflect something fundamental about consciousness itself. Recent neuroscience research has revealed that the sense of self emerges from the coordination of multiple brain networks rather than residing in any single location. During REM sleep, the communication patterns between these networks change dramatically, potentially allowing access to identity configurations that remain hidden during waking consciousness. Some interpretations suggest that the solid sense of self we experience during waking life might be more like a stabilizing process, similar to a quantum measurement, a collapse of multiple potential identity states into a single, consistent narrative. Dreams might provide access to the broader range of identity possibilities that exist before this stabilization occurs. This perspective has profound implications for understanding personal growth and transformation. If identity is more fluid and multidimensional than we typically recognize, then the potential for change and development might be far greater than our fixed self-concepts suggest. The different aspects of yourself that appear in dreams might not be imaginary constructions, but meaningful psychological facets of your identity that exist in potential. Consider the various roles and personalities you've embodied in dreams. Perhaps you've been more confident, more creative, more compassionate, or more adventurous than you typically allow yourself to be during waking life. These dream identities might represent genuine possibilities that exist within the inner landscape of your consciousness, waiting to be integrated into your waking experience. The therapeutic implications of this conceptual view of identity are significant. Many psychological approaches focus on changing thought patterns or behaviors, but working with dream identity might provide access to transformation at the level of fundamental self-structure. Instead of trying to modify who you are, you might learn to access different aspects of who you already are in potential. Creativity has always been one of the most mysterious aspects of human consciousness, emerging from sources that often feel beyond the reach of deliberate intention or logical analysis. Throughout history, artists, scientists, and innovators have reported that their most significant breakthroughs came not through systematic effort, but through sudden insights that seemed to arise from nowhere, often during dreams, meditation, or moments of relaxed attention. The quantum-inspired nature of dream consciousness might provide crucial insights into how creative breakthrough occurs. Unlike the linear, goal-directed thinking that characterizes much of waking consciousness, creative insights often involve the sudden convergence of previously unconnected elements into new forms of understanding. This process bears striking similarities to patterns observed in quantum phenomena, where particles in superposition suddenly collapse into definite configurations. During REM sleep, your brain shows patterns of connectivity that are dramatically different from waking consciousness. Regions that normally operate independently begin communicating in novel ways, creating opportunities for the kind of unexpected associations that characterize creative breakthrough. The altered neurochemistry of dreams might create conditions that favor highly parallel, non-linear information processing, where multiple possibilities can be explored simultaneously. Many famous creative discoveries have emerged directly from dreams. The chemist Auguste Kekule reportedly discovered the structure of the benzene molecule through a dream of a snake biting its own tail. Paul McCartney heard the complete melody for Yesterday in a dream. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein emerged from a vivid dream sequence. These aren't isolated anecdotes, but examples of a broader pattern where creative consciousness seems to access information through non-rational processes. The quantum metaphor suggests that creative insights might emerge from the collapse of superposition states, where multiple creative possibilities coexist until conditions allow them to converge into specific innovations. Dreams might provide optimal conditions for this creative processing because the usual logical constraints that limit associative thinking are relaxed during sleep states. This framework offers new ways of understanding and cultivating creativity. Instead of focusing solely on conscious effort and systematic analysis, creative practices might benefit from learning to access the deep associative processing modes that naturally occur during dreams and other altered states of consciousness. Consider your own experiences of creative insight. Have you noticed that breakthrough ideas often come not during intense focused effort, but during moments of relaxation, transition, or altered awareness? These experiences might reflect your consciousness accessing non-linear creative states, where creative superposition states can collapse into innovative outcomes. The implications extend beyond individual creativity to questions about collective innovation and cultural transformation. If creative consciousness does involve highly distributed processes, then the emergence of new ideas and cultural movements might represent collective creative dynamics, where multiple minds contribute to shared creative fields that transcend individual boundaries. One of the most puzzling aspects of dream experience is how memories behave during sleep states. Dreams often feature vivid recollections of events that never occurred, detailed knowledge of places you've never visited, and intimate familiarity with people you've never met. Yet these false memories feel completely authentic within the dream, often more emotionally resonant than actual memories from waking life. This phenomenon suggests that memory during dreams operates according to different principles than the storage and retrieval systems that function during waking consciousness. Instead of accessing fixed records of past events, dream consciousness seems capable of generating memory-like experiences in real time, creating histories and relationships that feel completely authentic despite having no basis in actual experience. The quantum-inspired perspective offers an intriguing framework for understanding this paradox. In quantum mechanics, information doesn't exist in fixed, predetermined states, but emerges from probability fields that contain multiple potential outcomes. Similarly, dream memories might emerge from probabilistic fields of experience rather than from stored records of actual events. During REM sleep, the hippocampus, your brain's primary memory center, shows unusual patterns of activity that don't correspond to normal memory consolidation processes. Instead of strengthening existing memory traces, the brain appears to be generating novel memory-like patterns that combine elements from different experiences in impossible ways. This might represent a form of highly generative memory processing, where multiple memory possibilities coexist until dream consciousness organizes them into specific experienced narratives. The false memories of dreams might be genuine memories of these constructed possibility states, rather than distortions of actual events. Recent research into memory formation has revealed that even waking memories are far more constructed and malleable than previously thought. Each time you recall an event, your brain reconstructs the memory from distributed neural patterns, potentially incorporating new information and associations. Dreams might simply make this constructive nature of memory more obvious by operating without the constraints that normally anchor memories to actual experiences. The implications of this flexible memory processing extend beyond understanding dreams to questions about the nature of knowledge and learning. If memory can access probability-based experiential patterns rather than just stored records, then the potential for insight and understanding might be far greater than traditional educational approaches recognize. Take a moment to reflect on the quality of your dream memories. Notice how they often feel different from ordinary memories, more fluid, more emotionally charged, somehow more alive than typical recollections. This qualitative difference might reflect how dream memories are dynamically generated and integrated. This perspective doesn't diminish the importance of actual experience and learning, but it suggests that consciousness might have access to forms of knowledge that transcend individual history and education. The wisdom that sometimes emerges from dreams might reflect genuine access to deep integrative patterns of understanding beyond personal memory storage. In the deeper reaches of dream consciousness, something profound often emerges that transcends the usual boundaries of personal concern and individual identity. Dreams regularly present scenarios where you experience genuine compassion for strangers, feel deep connection with beings you've never encountered, or find yourself caring for the well-being of entire communities or ecosystems. This expansion of compassionate awareness beyond personal boundaries might reflect expanded relational modes of consciousness. The neuroscience of compassion has revealed that empathetic responses involve complex networks of brain regions that become highly active during REM sleep. The areas associated with theory of mind, your ability to understand the mental states of others, show unusual patterns of connectivity during dreams that might allow access to forms of empathetic understanding that transcend ordinary social cognition. If consciousness does involve processes analogous to quantum behavior, then the non-local correlations that characterize quantum entanglement might offer a conceptual lens for thinking about emotional and empathetic connections between minds. The relaxed boundaries of dream consciousness might make these relational experiences feel more immediate and vivid. This remains a highly speculative idea without scientific consensus, but it offers a framework for understanding why dreams sometimes generate profound experiences of universal compassion that feel more real and meaningful than ordinary emotional responses. These experiences might reflect access to deeply interconnected patterns of awareness beyond individual neural networks. Many contemplative traditions have recognized that compassion emerges naturally when the artificial boundaries of separate selfhood are relaxed. Dreams might provide spontaneous access to these expanded states of awareness, where the well-being of others becomes as immediate and important as personal concerns. Recent research into meditation and consciousness has revealed that contemplative practices can generate measurable changes in brain networks associated with empathy and compassion. Some studies have even suggested correlations between group meditation practices and reduced violence in surrounding communities, though these findings remain controversial and not conclusively established. If dreams do provide access to expanded fields of compassionate awareness, this could have profound implications for understanding ethical development and social transformation. Instead of viewing compassion as a moral choice that must be cultivated through effort, it might be recognized as a natural capacity of consciousness that emerges when ordinary cognitive boundaries soften. Consider your own experiences of compassion in dreams. Have you ever felt profound care for dream characters who are complete strangers, or experienced the suffering of others as immediately as your own? These experiences might represent your consciousness accessing broader empathetic capacities beyond the boundaries of individual identity. This perspective suggests that the development of compassion and ethical awareness might benefit from approaches that work with the non-linear, integrative processing modes accessible during dreams and contemplative states, rather than relying solely on rational moral reasoning. As our exploration through the quantum landscape of dream consciousness draws toward its natural conclusion, we find ourselves not with definitive answers, but with a deeper appreciation for the profound mystery that consciousness represents. The parallels we've discovered between dream experience and quantum mechanics point toward a vision of reality that is more interconnected, more alive, and more fundamentally mysterious than the mechanistic worldview that has dominated Western thought for centuries. The quantum-inspired nature of dreams suggests that every night, as billions of human beings slip into sleep around the globe, we participate collectively in processes that may illuminate the nature of reality itself. Our dreaming consciousness doesn't just observe unusual phenomena, it demonstrates the fluidity of identity, the coexistence of possibilities, and the participatory relationship between awareness and experience. This recognition transforms our understanding of what it means to be human in a vast and complex cosmos. We are not separate observers of an external reality, but participants in an unfolding process where consciousness shapes experience moment by moment. The implications ripple outward from neuroscience and physics into the most intimate aspects of human life. If consciousness does operate in ways that parallel quantum principles, then the potential for healing, creativity, and transformation may be far greater than classical models suggest. The solutions we seek, the peace we long for, the innovations that could transform our world, all of these may exist in states of possibility, waiting to be accessed through states of awareness that transcend ordinary logical constraints. The healing that occurs in dreams, the insights that emerge from contemplative practice, the creative breakthroughs that arise in moments of relaxed attention, the profound sense of interconnection that emerges when ordinary boundaries dissolve. All of these might reflect our natural capacity to access deep, integrative modes of consciousness that reveal possibilities hidden from linear thought. Yet perhaps the most important insight from our journey together isn't any specific theory, but the recognition that we live in a universe far more mysterious and wonderful than our everyday experience typically reveals. The fact that consciousness exists at all in a cosmos of quantum fields and probability waves remains perhaps the most extraordinary phenomenon we know. Whether quantum mechanics ultimately explains consciousness, or consciousness explains quantum mechanics, or both emerge from something even deeper and more mysterious, the exploration itself enriches our appreciation for the extraordinary nature of existence. Each night as you drift into sleep, you participate in this ongoing mystery, contributing your own unique perspective to the eternal questions about awareness and reality. As you continue your own exploration of consciousness and dreams, remember that you carry within yourself one of the most sophisticated biological systems we know of. A brain capable of generating awareness, processing information in highly flexible ways, and accessing forms of understanding that transcend classical logic. Every moment of consciousness, every dream, every insight represents a manifestation of complex physical and biological processes that connect you to the creativity of the universe itself. The journey into understanding consciousness is far from complete, and perhaps it never will be, but the exploration enriches our appreciation for the extraordinary nature of existence and our place within the vast, interconnected web of reality. The dream continues and consciousness dreams on, weaving together the possible and the actual in the eternal dance of awareness discovering itself. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, carry with you the recognition that you're not just resting your tired mind, but embarking on a nightly journey into the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Your dreams are invitations to experience reality's depth directly, to participate in the rich field of possibilities that underlies all experience. Sleep well, dream deeply, and remember that wonder is always just one moment of awareness away.